morning, and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am Jam, and this is a show where we hang out, we talk about games, board games, card games, role-playing games, things of beauty, things that make us enjoy gaming all the more. And good morning to everyone who is in the chat, including John Doom and Grom and Jason and DM James. It's good to see all of you. See, did I miss anybody? Ross, good to see you as well. Yeah, you could hear me. I realized I left my mic on. For those of you, some of you know that I do some work for Symbolic World with Richard, who is also the author of Emboria. And part of that today was unloading 33 boxes of books right before the start of the stream. So if I'm a little clumped, if you will, that is why. I have talked about card games, Ross, and in fact, I may do one on WrestleNomicon because that's just a great card game. But I also enjoy Legend of the Five Rings, and I've been known to play Magic from time to time. So what are we talking about today? So I think you guys remember when we did our Daggerheart review that my Tuesday night group has been playing Palladium Fantasy, and they wanted to take a break and do a game of Daggerheart for one of our players' birthdays because of the frog people. And that was fun. I did my review of Daggerheart based off that. And then usually this time of year, especially with my health issues, we don't always get to play every week. And then with things like Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, we tend to do one-shots here at the end of the year, kind of as a way to break up the year, kind of transition out of what we were currently doing, set up the campaign for next year, that sort of thing. And we tried this. I was like, well, hey, if we tried Daggerheart, we should try Draw Steel. I just got my books in. And what surprised me is that not only did my players love Draw Steel, but they were like, hey, instead of doing more one-shots, why don't we just keep playing Draw Steel just till the end of the year? So we're playing through the Delian Tomb. And the Delian Tomb is, probably Matt Colville's big claim to fame, if you think about it. It was the adventure that launched his channel, his idea that, hey, you can be a DM starting today. Here, let's make the Delian Tomb and run through it. And so, yeah. They updated the Delian Tomb to Draw Steel and then expanded it out. Instead of just being the 5-room dungeon that many of us have run, it is now a full adventure. There's 2 additional levels to the dungeon. There's some wilderness exploration, some role-playing, some more mystery about the world. And we finished up the first part. We finished up the Delian Tomb. So we played 2 sessions of it. We've run through 5 encounters. 4 of them are combat, and I think 2 role-playing and 1 trap and a riddle. And my group loves it. Now, this is a group that loves... Oh, good morning, Tink. That loved playing 13th Age. So it's really no surprise to me that they liked Draw Steel. For those of you who don't know, Draw Steel is the MCDM flagship role-playing game. This is Heroes and then Monsters. It is designed to be tactical, cinematic, heroic fantasy. And I like that it opens up by saying, hey, if you want these things out of the game, here are the games you should actually look at. Draw Steel isn't for you. I've seen a lot of reviews from Draw Steel that are really negative about the game, as if the game didn't tell you exactly what it was and what it was trying to do. And so a lot of people are like, well, Draw Steel removes this or Draw Steel doesn't do that. And I'm like, yeah, no, it says so right on the tin. So this is my unsolicited review as somebody who has run Draw Steel, talked with his players about what they liked about Draw Steel. And maybe this will help you decide if this game is for you. So Draw Steel is tactical, cinematic, heroic fantasy. And really what that means is you're playing big damn heroes in a fantasy world with... all of your abilities to designed to make you feel cool when you use them. And then the game actually encourages metagaming. In a way that in John Doom's Savage Pathfinder game, we would talk about, okay, well, if Tink can entangle those guys, then we can do this and then that, and right. this game actually actively encourages that, because each of the classes has their own way to generate their own unique heroic resource. And in generating these resources, you then power your abilities. And that's kind of where some of the tactical nature comes in. Because, for example, Tink's Alchemist gains a resource anytime she or an enemy takes non-holy specified damage. So not like a melee or a ranged attack, but fire or poison or lightning or something like that. So she will routinely talk to the rest of the group and say, hey, can anybody do that so that I can then have enough essence to do this cool thing on my turn? I will come back to your question, Tink, because I like that. Cryptrite, good morning. So every class has their own way of generating their own resource, which allows the classes to, even though all of the abilities generally fall into one of 4 categories, the classes still feel very unique. The Conduit, which is the cleric, gains their resource by praying. The Troubadour gets drama anytime something really, really good or really, really bad happens. And so Tink brought up 4th edition, and we'll take an aside here. How close is Draw Steel to 4th edition? So here's the thing. I ran a lot of 4E. I was one of the people who actually enjoyed 4E and did not find the fact that it was a very tactical game to in any way remove its role-playing capabilities. D&D has always at its heart been a combat engine, so that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I did understand the idea that, hey, because everything was either a daily, an at-will, or an encounter, the classes kind of felt samey. And I like the Draw Steel heroic resource because the heroic resources allow each class to generate the way they do their cool things in its own unique way. So let me take a step back and talk about the basic mechanics of the game. From everybody's perspective, you'll roll 2d10. 2d10, add them together, add your modifier, done. And essentially, it's a lot like Savage Worlds, right? In Savage Worlds, we're always looking for 4 or 4 above your opponent's parry, right? In Draw Steel, there are really 2 breakpoints, and they occur at 12 and 17. So if you roll less than a 12, so an 11 or less, you get a tier 1 result. In skill checks, that could be a failure. That could be a failure with consequence. In combat, that's like your bare minimum result. You do X number of damage, and that's it. If you get between 12 and 16, you get a tier 2 result. And a tier 2 result is obviously better than a tier 1 result. You do more damage. You may enjoy more forced movement than you did or more persistent damage. And then 17 or above is a tier 3 result. And after only 2 sessions, everyone in the group knew exactly what to look for. And instead of calling out numbers, they started calling out their tier result, which was really cool. If you roll a natural 19 or 20, you get a critical hit, which does not necessarily do more damage, but it gives you a whole another turn. Like when you critically hit, you get to go again, which is like really, really pretty cool. Ross, 4E did remove all of the natural language and replaced it with mechanical language. Rob Heinso, who was the lead designer on 4E, is a gamist when you talk about narrativist, simulationist, and gamist. In his mind, making the game more gameable was a worthy goal. And so he removed a lot of the ambiguity and then what we call natural language to say, hey, your fireball does this much damage. It hits this many squares. Here's the save. Done. Draw Steel uses more mechanical language. This book is actually far less of a game book and far more of a reference manual in the fact that the layout is not flashy, it's not splashy, but it's eminently usable. And each of the powers has been designed identically with great icons that kind of help you immediately, even if you're going from one class to another, you still can immediately read how that power works. So, Molly, I would say that Draw Steel is very much like 4th edition. It's very tactical. You're having to keep track of different states and auras and forced movement, and do things trigger off of forced movement? Do I have a trigger for this? I think I would put in place the rule that if your turn is over, if the turn ends and you miss something, remember it next time, because that was one of the things that really slowed 4E down and Savage Pathfinder when I read it. The fact that people will go, oh, no, I forgot this. Okay, I forget things all the time. Let's move on to the next round. Keep it in mind for your next turn. So all classes have basic abilities that you can use kind of at will. And then the rest kind of require you to build up some of these heroic resources, whether you're spending 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, you kind of see how this works. And typically everyone generates 2 to 3 resources on their turn, which means your 5 and higher abilities take longer to put into play. But one of the design goals of Draw Steel was to get rid of the wizard work day, where the wizard blows all of their spells in the first room, and we've been up for 10 minutes and now it's time to sleep. And 13th Age tries to solve that with kind of its story beats. The Draw Steel solves it in a very, very interesting way. In the fact that you have recoveries, which work like in 13th Age or 4th edition, or hit dice in 5th edition, and those go down as you use them to heal. Those only come back when you take a respite, which is a 24-hour rest period. So you can't just rest anywhere. You've got to get somewhere where you can spend a whole day recovering. But on the flip side, every encounter that you win grants you a victory. And if you start with a number of your heroic resources equal to the number of victories that you have. And when you take a respite, those victories convert into XP. So essentially what they've created is 2 opposing mechanics that sort of encourage the group to continue to push past when they would normally want to rest in a more traditional Vancian D&D game. And here's why. Your recoveries are dropping, but you're starting the battle more powerful. So the discussion that happens is, do we think we can do one more fight if we're going in there with 5 victories and starting the game or starting the encounter with 5 of our heroic resources, but we're down to 0 to 2 recoveries each? Or do we take a rest knowing that it's going to take a whole day and things can change in a 24-hour period? I think that's one of the things I love about the respite. The time it takes to take a long rest is large enough that it is a choice. An 8-hour rest almost feels like, well, nobody in the dungeon can react quick enough in 8 hours. But a full day, that's something that you've got to weigh. If the prince is about to be sacrificed to a demon and you know it's in the next room, if we wait a day, what happens? So it's got some of the campaign loss of 13th Age that I like as well. On the GM side, you have your own villainous resource called Malice. And what I like about Malice is, in a lot of ways, it works like the heroic resources do, as well as the hero tokens. There are hero tokens with the group can pool that allows rerolls. Think of it as like a group pool of bennies. But each monster grouping has their own malice spends, which is really, really cool. So goblins get 3 malice spends. So if there are goblins on the battlefield, the GM now has 3 additional ways to spend malice. Kobolds, hobgoblins, giants, dragons, they all have unique malice spends that allows you to theme your use of malice in a way that is appropriate to the monsters. And yes, Tink brought up the fact that the intro adventure is very well designed, at least the Delian Tomb, the first part. We're going to see how the rest of it plays. There's 2 more acts. I'll let you guys know how it goes. But what's interesting is the way they set up the character sheets is the first page of the character sheet is all of the normal stuff that you would expect: hit points, recoveries, attributes, skills, and then only your basic abilities, your things that don't cost heroic resources, your things that don't require triggers for reactions. Just swing a sword, fire a magic missile, generate your heroic resource. And that's for the first encounter. And then each encounter after that, you add 1 or 2 new powers based off the class. That's on the second page. And so by the time you finish the top of the Delian Tomb, you now have access to your entirety of your first level abilities. But you've sort of been introduced, you're introduced first to how to generate resources, and then you get your first ability to spend them. And now that you've accumulated 2 victories, now we can talk about your bigger spends and your reactions and your triggers. How do those all work? They did a great job of sort of gatekeeping the information in digestible chunks that allows the players to focus on learning the game in the first fight, and then each encounter after that, just 1 additional piece. Now, it is tactical. That means there's there's table talk, there's metagaming. It can slow down if your group is not willing to move quickly, which my group is. Maybe setting a timer or just saying, hey, it is a fluid initiative system. So if you have a reason to go first, speak up. And then people kind of naturally slotted into the rest of the initiative for the round. I was actually very impressed with how quickly my group picked up on it. The fights were interesting. You do have to track a lot of things. So there are things like forced movement. You got to realize that, hey, if you hit something with forced movement, they take damage equal to 2 plus the remaining squares that they can't move anymore. That was sort of the only thing to kind of keep track in this first adventure. All right, so John Doom asked this, what's the speed of it? You and I discussed this apparent slowness of the system based off the stream. Yes, I do think that the reason the stream seems so slow is because it would be like John Doom, Tink, Grom, and I sitting around the table and just happening to have cameras on. They're making jokes. They're giving each other crap, probably getting up to get whiskey. There was a lot. It wasn't an actual play. It was literally them just turning the cameras on while they were playing. We played 2 sessions. In the first session, we played for 2 hours, and we got through an opening role-playing scene, 2 fights, and a trap. And that was with explaining all the rules to the players. The second time we played, we also played for 2 hours. We had a brand new player, so we did a rules recap, and we played through, again, 3 scenes in 2 hours. And that's the second time it was 3 very intense combat scenes with a lot of different things going on. There were glowing sigils and rituals going on and 30 monsters on the board. Maybe not 30, but there were a lot of monsters on the board. This game also makes really great use of the minion rule from 4th edition, more like 13th Age, where they share a pool of hit points. But also minions can have a captain attached to them that then gives all of the minions an ability while the captain's alive. So players are then faced with the choice, do we blow through the minions who are clearly dealing a lot of damage and can be killed easily, or do we take the captain out first and then remove that special ability from them? So, John, I don't think that it moves any slower than at level 1 than a 5th edition game or a Savage Worlds game. We got through in 2 hours what I would expect to get through in 2 hours in basically any other role-playing game that I've played. Tink did bring up one of the 2 big, I don't want to say issues, but one of the 2 things we might change in our own personal group. Most of my players liked the quantified initiative better. And as Tink said, because it's easy to feel like you're being rude because you're like, wait, actually, I had this cool idea. Could I go first? That one's okay. The one thing that surprised me is my group loved the I always hit in combat, but hated the fact that double ones didn't do something negative. So I would probably introduce a critical failure rule with double ones. I'm not quite sure how I would do that, but I'm pondering it. I'm pondering like how, what would be a cool thing to do for critical failures. And that was like ubiquitous across everyone who played. So I think Tink has the broadest role-playing experience of different types of games. 3 of my players came from 5th edition, and they've only played either 5th edition or games that I have run for them. One of my other players has had pretty broad experience as well. But they all were like, yeah, it feels like if we roll double ones that something bad should happen. And yes, Tink, I love the idea of a crit fail table to roll on and see what's going on. Cryptrate, I wish I was having breakfast with you today, man. That sounds fantastic. All right, so at the end of the day, what was interesting about my group is right now we're playing Palladium Fantasy, and they're like, it's a heavy role-play story-focused game, and they love it because their powers are being able to be used in like very nebulous and weird ways because they're written in very natural language. So as long as it makes sense, it works. Before this, we played games like Hyperborea, 13th Age, and one of my players summed it up. They said, I would like to play Draw Steel after Palladium Fantasy. And here's why. She said, I love Palladium Fantasy because it's very story focused, it's very role-playing focused. I love that. But a game like this is great after a game like that. This game is all about, hey, let's have our story, let's talk, but really the focus of the game is cool set pieces and fighting monsters and looking like a big damn hero. If you want a very tactical game, it is on the box, very tactical. Players are going to be talking about where to move people on the board. They're going to be talking about how powers interact. They're going to be talking about whether whose trigger goes off. Do I want to use this ability now? Do I want to save it? Do we push? Do we stay back? This game feels like the game for you. It feels like it would do very well as a point crawl game, where you are moving from set piece to set piece and interacting with the cool things there, whether that's NPCs with negotiation, whether that's cool treasure that you find that you are then able to craft. This game has robust negotiation rules and crafting rules and downtime rules. But the heart of the game is tactical combat. So if you like games like 4th edition D&D, 13th Age, XCOM, Baldur's Gate 3, maybe not Baldur's Gate 3. What's the other one that Larian did? Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. This game will appeal to you. So I put the link in the show notes. That's it for today. We'll be back on Tuesday, which will be our last stream before Thanksgiving. And this Saturday, I will be doing Exploring Glorantha with my good friend Evan. We'll be there at 11 o'clock Eastern. So to everyone who's in the chat, it is always, always good to talk with you. If you guys on the Discord would like this, maybe in January I'll set up a Draw Steel one-shot where we'll play through the Delian Tomb on like a Sunday night, and that way people can check it out. Maybe I'll build it in Tailspire so we can really like put that through its paces as well. So that's it for today. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I am JM. This has been Behind the Screen, and I will see you all later. Until next time, have a good one.